But then at the start of the conversation, you said the reality of the industry is that you're being ranked and being booked based on your looks. So the metric of success is being booked more, and the way you get booked more is by the way that you look for the most part. So it's kind of this polarity that's quite hard to bunk, because you can't disregard the look because that's the very thing that gets you on the billboard in the first place.
Yeah.
Is it very hard in the industry of modeling having to balance this way of how you actually feel versus how you look, because the looks is what's getting the work. And like if you try and prioritize feeling, you might gain too much weight or, you know, whatever it might be. And then a byproduct of that is you don't get booked. So then you're not seen as successful and then you go down this spiral. Is it a hard thing to balance when you're modeling?
It's definitely a hard thing to balance, and I respect everything you're saying. I feel grateful that in my position, I am more of a commercial style of model. So I don't need to be rake thin. And I can't speak for the girls who have to be a size 0 and have to walk Paris Fashion Week. That's a completely different ball game for me. From my own experience, when I've been in my flow state, you know, where things happen with ease, it's easy for me to get up and train. It's easy for me to eat healthy. I don't think twice about it. Whilst my old self, all I ever thought about was what's my next meal? When's my next workout? Like, what a sad life to all you think about is food and exercise. Now it's more of healthy habits. And for me, I'm just trying to share to young women that once they start prioritizing themselves, the eating healthy and the training happens with ease. You don't really have to think about it all the time.
I agree with that entirely, because when you feel really good about yourself, you've got something to strive towards. It's probably tying into that thing outside of modeling, having something that you're actually getting excited about out of the modeling. Then you're not tying your identity to the modeling thing specifically. So then when you have obviously the industry can be fluctuating in the sense that you might be booked for a whole week straight and then not booked for 2 weeks. You're still making way more money than anyone in a normal job, but because you're not working for say 2 weeks in a row, you're considered a failure or whatever, right? In your own mind. And so then you're battling this. But when you can actually get something outside of modeling that you're driven towards, like yourself, Dom, and the things like this, you don't feel worthless in a sense when you're not working and modeling. You've got something else to strive towards. It's probably a big factor that can allow you to feel good. Because like I just go back and I'm a bit scarred from the industry, if I'm completely honest. But the thing is it's not all bad, but what I've seen is like the importance of having something outside of it, because it can really, really fuck with you, right? It can really mess with your mind, that comparison thing of others, but then also yourself. But what's interesting is when you're in that moment, when you're focusing on the next meal and doing all this, like, were you getting a lot of work back then?
That's the saddest thing, is that I was working every day and I had such an unhealthy relationship with food. I was having red wine and sleeping pills every night to fall asleep. I was riddled with insomnia, anxiety. I was so unhealthy. However, I have to say I hid it from the world. So clients weren't booking me knowing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it was something that I knew wasn't a good thing. So I hid it. From what I've heard by being on sets, brands want to work with people who they get on with, they're bubbly. So I still was bringing that to set. But then I was so depleted once I sat in my car after a day shoot, because I gave everything, because all I was chasing was just validation from strangers. And I'm so grateful for my career, and it's really set me up. And if I didn't hit those rock bottoms, I wouldn't be where I am now. But I'm just so passionate in not letting every girl in this industry have to hit that rock bottom. And it works two ways, because you can be working every day, so then you feel like you need to maintain that. Or as you said, you might not be working, so you blame your physical appearance for you not working. So I completely understand that. However, if you look at success, let's change it from shoots to where I am now. I'm literally living my vision board right now. And I would not change my schedule to be shooting every day. I fucking love my life right now.
Yeah, it's very cool. I just think it's really interesting because if you look at the progression of your life and when you got scouted at 15 years old, you probably would have been like wrapped, like, oh my God, I'm going to be like one of those
That was my dream.
models that
Oh, yeah.
everyone looks towards. And you're in such a naive state at 15, you don't know what you're about to embark on. And then you embark on it. And I think it probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably go on this stage of like one thing led to another, one thing led to another. And then you kind of keep going down this rabbit hole of the beauty industry and modeling until you get to a point where you're like, fuck, I can't sleep. I'm wearing this mask going into work. And I'm kind of battling demons in a simple sense. Every single day because of what this has spiraled into. When you go back to those times, was it extremely hard to have this mask on going into work and just kind of trying to fit this character to in turn get more work and live in this cycle? Was it really challenging?
It was really challenging. The biggest thing I was challenged by was the sleep. Like, I was an insomniac, and it was the hardest thing because, as I said, my head noise was already bad. So then when you can't sleep and your head's on the pillow and you're just thinking about this person got this job. What about that casting I went to? I didn't get that. I'm going to meet new people tomorrow. I wonder if they like me. So many thoughts ruminating. It led me down the hole of drinking and sleeping pills. Like, I would take the mini red wines of my Qantas flights, take them to my hotel room because I was so dependent on that. And yeah, it is really heartbreaking now thinking about, I look at my younger self and I get really upset about it. But I feel that I represent light at the end of the tunnel. And when I've shared my story, the amount of women, models and not, I also want to preface here that I feel like all women go through this, whether you're a woman or not. Society validates women on their looks. Look at Instagram. Look at all the people with millions of followers. They're aesthetically beautiful. And that's a really hard truth. It's something that all women have to struggle with. So I share my story to inspire all women to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And honestly, I thought I would never be able to have kids because I couldn't imagine not having a drink.
Yeah, and I guess the male version of that is there's a pressure for men to make all this money and have a six pack and like, drive nice cars and all of this side of things. And then the women's one is that looks thing, that constant pressure. When you were in those lower times, did it feel really lonely?
Yeah.
Was loneliness a feeling you felt a lot?
Yeah, loneliness was huge. And that's also when I was kind of grateful for social media because as a model, I was traveling all the time, but I was able to share my life. It actually made me feel less alone in a weird way. But I remember always being in hotel rooms and feeling super alone, even though I've pretty much had a relationship my entire life. My family live in Sydney. I felt alone because I wasn't sharing the core of me. Like, as I said, I had this mask on, so I was not authentic. It wasn't real. And I feel like I couldn't build real relationships, until I shared that vulnerability with others.
Yeah, I guess loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of connection. And it's like when you're down bad, struggling alone in a hotel room, but then you're getting all this praise from people about how gorgeous you look and you post a photo and you've got all these amazing comments and DMs and stuff. Like there's this polarity between how you actually feel and how people think you feel and who you are. And that's the challenge because of that disconnect. It's like, okay, we're not connecting here. And when there's a lack of connection, that's when there's that increased feeling of being alone and loneliness. It's like not someone you can just call and talk about all of this with and share it with. It's like you just feel like you're doing it alone in a sense. And I guess that's a challenge that people in the limelight, especially models, would probably have to go through when they are going to, and hence why they start doing the things like the alcohol and the comparison and the questioning of what you're doing and all the rest of it. Those would all be challenges that you would have faced in those moments, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. And what comes to mind there is that, that 80-year study on happiness, the Harvard study, and the biggest key thing for longevity is connection.
Is that the study? What's the study?
It's the Harvard study. It's the longest study in history. and they were seeing what factors determine longevity and happiness. And the biggest contributor is connection. And not social media connection, real in-person connection. And yeah, I guess I didn't have that. And it does make me think. I see a lot of girls who post a lot and maybe they aren't as happy as they seem to be.
Yeah.
That makes sense.